Good morning, Anastasia. How are you? Is it morning there? Hi.
It just turned noon, so it is like noon. But although like here it seems like before Dhuhr prayer, everyone says good morning, even
Yeah.
though in the States we're always accustomed to saying noon is afternoon, but they always say, well, it's before Dhuhr, so we're still good morning. And so yeah, it's okay, good morning. It's noon, but good morning.
Good morning. صباح الخير. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
You look stunning. And thanks
Thank
again
you.
for being my guest. So,
Thank
so Anastasia, I really appreciate talking to you every time, be it in our TESOL meetings, be it in any event we attend together, and especially in my podcasts. So you are my guest for the second time, and it's a pleasure to have you again. And I really appreciate your energy, and I really appreciate your sense of being. The way you kind of live your life, the way you kind of inspire others. And I'm sure that whoever's going to listen to this podcast today will end up with some food for thought and a lot of things to learn. And thank you. Thanks again, Anastasia.
Well, thank you. I mean, the feeling is mutual. You also are so inspiring. The professional development that you do, your ideas, everything that you do, you're always sharing different ideas, different links. You're much more active on LinkedIn and all these things than I am right now. That actually might be one of my SMART goals we'll talk about is to be more proactively online, a lot more sharing professional development ideas. I haven't really had that bandwidth, but thank you for all you do. So it's very good. It's really good to talk to you again as well.
It's a pleasure actually. And the topic for this podcast is not really different from the previous one. And whoever has been following me maybe might be asking some questions. It's like, why is she choosing like kind of Japanese words to as a title to her podcast? So the thing is that I'm very fond of the Japanese and Asian culture in general, and part of this may be my yoga practice, Tai Chi practice. I don't know. I can find myself really well at ease dealing with the culture, but still I'm learning new words. So maybe this podcast is named as KaiZen. Maybe the next one I'll be using a different language, and that is part of multilingualism. So every language is welcome. And for the KaiZen podcast, so I will explain a little bit what does it mean. And because I've received a lot of questions and people that have been asking me, what does it mean? What does it mean? It seems to be very famous in the business field because the Kaizen theory, I'll explain it a little bit afterwards. What is Kaizen? But etymologically speaking, like the word means Kaizen, it's like a combination of two words put together. It's like Kai means change. Zen, just like in yoga and Zen attitude, means positive, good. Together means improvement, or let's say regular progress towards achieving improvement through regular and consistent effort. So in our field in TESOL, I'm sure Anastasia, like the initial point has been a little bit challenging for all of us until we've reached this stage, like to be well at ease, like we've matured in terms of leadership, in terms of our teaching practice, and I'm interested in knowing how is the word, let's say, or the concept Kaizen is reflected in your life. So, would you like us to start to talk about maybe your academic or professional life, personal life, as you want? So, how do you perceive Kaizen, Anastasia?
Oh, especially living abroad. I mean, I really can't say abroad because Palestine, where I'm currently located, is my husband's first country. My kids are Palestinian American, and of course, we're trying to get me as well to be a Palestinian citizen. So I really can't say abroad. I can say like our second country. And I really find these ideas very much intertwined. I don't feel I just have a professional life and I have a personal life. I think everything is kind of connected together. So, when people say, what do you do? It's like, well, I'm a professor, I'm also a mom, I'm a wife. My children, as they are continuing to adjust to different school systems here and different expectations, I feel like there's a new role of kind of teacher that I have to continuously go to. There are different ways, like I'm still wrapping my head around the school system, although I know a lot more than I did last year. The school knows our children now, which is good. So there's that. And then also, I'm finding different ways to be able to assist people, in my career. So I teach online. I'm also a teacher trainer online. I'm also kind of what you call a publishing mentor, where I work for a journal, and if a journal really likes a certain article, but they need a little bit more help with the language of the organization, then they come to me and say, okay, we really want you to help mentor this author because we like what they're doing, but it needs more for us to be able to accept as a publication. Most of these people are international, they're overseas, they're in the Middle East. And so that really helps to further the equity and the inclusion, especially in our publication process, because, it's quite standardized. It's also quite rigorous. And it also is very, for lack of a better term, gatekeeping. So you might find some really amazing ideas, but they're lacking they're lacking the form, they're lacking the English. And so their ideas are not getting out there, which, is not, to me, that's not exactly equitable. So, I try to do my part to just help people. And I think that reflects my different involvements in different organizations, from TESOL to TEFL Kuwait. So it's just a matter of just helping people, furthering our field, making those interconnected connections. I don't just have, for example, my TESOL friends. I have, mom friends who might be TESOL friends, who might be language friends or whatever. Like, we have these different communities, which are also starting to intertwine a lot more.
Exactly.
So, but I'll stop here for lack of, for rambling on. So I'll stop.
No, it's fine. No, you can carry on talking, and the thing that you mentioned, the last point, is that same people, you can find them everywhere, it's just like, I've known you like in different contexts, and still we're not, as you said, it's intertwined. We're not kind of categorizing things like this is professional, this is personal, this is academic. So we are an entity, that's our identity, actually. Like, that diversity is key. And kudos for whatever you're doing, be it helping others achieve their goals, be it helping professionals more specifically, and helping your children as well. And being a mom is a full-time job. It's not easy at all. And I'm so happy. I'm so glad I'm following. I know Yusuf, but I forgot your second son's name. So you have Yusuf and
my oldest, Said.
Said. Okay,
yeah,
great. Just like Said, Said, this is City Busaid. Do you know this place from my country? Did I tell you?
I don't, but we keep talking about visiting. So my next stop hopefully is going to be Tunisia. I need to visit Tunisia at some point. But yeah, Yusuf is 8 and Said is my 13-year-old. And, when I was talking about intertwining professional and personal identities, my youngest was diagnosed with ADHD and some sort of dyslexia. And so me being, of course, a linguist, I learned about different types of, dyslexia and all that. It's like, oh, okay, so I got to get into my research. Yes. And, one of my friends was like, well, the techniques because you're an applied linguist yourself. I'm like, yes, but I don't like to wear my professor hat with my mom hat, with this hat. And I was like, well, you're going to have to, if you're going to help your son to, wrap his mind around different things and educational techniques and all. Like, we know scaffolding, we know this, we know all the different things that kids need. These are things that my kid needs. And so sometimes I have to put on that researcher hat and say, okay, what do you need? How do you process? Because I love processing. And he's also on some medication right now as well. And it helps him to focus. It gets his dopamine higher. And now I get to see how he can learn. He shows me how he learns and how he processes. And so I'm a huge fan of any type of tools that we can use to help our kids. My husband and I were initially really worried he was being diagnosed in Palestine because we didn't know what kind of resources were here, but there are resources here. The only caveat to this is that it's still quite stigmatized. And so there is this amazing clinic, which is in the city center, and they have a Facebook page, they have an Instagram page, and they're all over the place, but no one is going to post about, hey, I just went to this clinic, because nobody wants anyone to know that they were at this clinic. Right. Yeah. And for me, I just want people to know this resource is out there. So I am much more open with this, Even my son's English teacher was like, so how many people do you want to know that your son has ADHD? I'm like, anybody who is teaching my son needs to know.
Yes.
Honey, I am not ashamed of it.
Let's
It
start
is
with
something
that. Yes.
to advocate for our children. I'm not ashamed of it. We're happy we're getting answers and everything. So if anybody is watching in Palestine, the Palestine Clinic on Rakab Street, Shahad Rakab, this is where you go for ADHD, for psychology, for anything. It's an amazing place. And we're so happy that resource exists.
I'm so happy for you that you found the right resources for Yusuf. It's really appeasing to a mom to know, because it's different as a teacher, and you said it's good that teachers, they know, so that to know how to deal with Yusuf and to let him learn his own pace, his own way, because sometimes we tend to kind of put everybody into the same basket, and it's not the case, no longer the case with the 21st century education. We should kind of differentiate, and even with differentiation, we have to test, we have to evaluate, we have to make it as much as possible student-centered. And it's not difficult. I've taught students with some learning difficulties and challenges, and I know what it takes. I can feel moms when they come to the parents' meetings and they talk to me, and I do my best to learn. First, to do my job in the part of learning, getting informed, testing new methodologies. It's like it's not something like to be taken for granted. Like, look, we have our certificates, we have our degrees, and we're just going to teach, and that's it. No, I believe that teachers, they have to kind of customize the learning experience, personalize it as much as possible, and let alone if sometimes the teachers can have themselves those symptoms. It's not like something to be ashamed of. We have to deal with human beings the way they are, and respect the sensitivity and the vulnerability of a student expressing that to a teacher, or even like I've seen like students diagnosed with ADHD, and even parents themselves. And it's more than that. So I can feel both of them. So having a good ear is key. Listening to them first. It's not like, no, your son is just hyperactive in class and this doesn't happen in my class. It doesn't have to be this way. It's like, and I tried to kind of make the student feel well at ease in class, because sometimes some students cannot be welcomed by their friends. The teacher can be tolerant, everybody can be understanding, but sometimes it's like they can make fun of each other, and can't you just sit on a chair, but that's few things can be said like that, but it should be really taken in a very, 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 very delicate way, so that we don't hurt anybody's feelings. And then the student can have the best possible learning experience he or she can have. So, and after this, where we're teaching human beings, I had a lot of my students coming after and kind of telling me, Miss, it was amazing just being in your class. Just by being humane, that's the point. And for moms, it's difficult. It's difficult for the follow-up, especially at home. So if, for example, if things are not done right in class, and the kids, they go back home, and the moms and dads, whoever is like tutoring the kid at home, it's difficult. It's difficult to follow up. And especially if the student really did not really understand what is happening in class. So I believe in digitalizing all this process. I'm working on maybe a project is on the long run, how to develop kind of something like for special education students, and like for everybody, for students, for parents, and for the institutions, for everything related to that. It's a dream. I hope that it will come true one day.
And I think that's great though, because, you mentioned digitizing, special education doesn't just need, but everybody would need it. So it's a tool that maybe you're like, okay, special education in mind, but it wouldn't be singling out just special education. Everybody can
yes,
from
exactly.
It, right? Like my first year with my youngest, we would ask him, okay, what did you take today? He couldn't tell us. right? Who's your teacher? He couldn't tell us. And it was like, and we didn't know exactly what was going on. And it wasn't until the teacher or the school at the end of the year said, okay, we have a specialist coming in. You can have an appointment on this day. It's this much money, but he needs to get screened because we need to see what's going on. And of course, we got him screened, we got him diagnosed. And so the teacher was like, you know, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, why are you proud of me? And it was like, well, you knew there was something wrong. Oh, and you didn't deny it. And I'm like, why would I deny it? And I was like, there are so many parents who would say, no, they're not the problem. You're the problem. Or they're not the problem. It's the school's problem. It's like, but you didn't deny it and you did something about it. And so the more we can do that. And now it's like, he's on this medicine, little bit of medicine only during school. And I'll say, okay, what did you take today? Oh, I had this. Oh, I have this test. You know, and we have the weekly plan, but he can actually expand upon it, which means I can help him and and the school can help him. So these missing pieces of the puzzle, which are so crucial. I mean, I think that's why I'm also so open about it, so that more parents will also be more open, because my kid is the only one who has ADHD. I've been in that school. He's not the only one, but he's the one who's getting the services. He's the one who's getting assistance because we're doing something about it. So I just hope that more people in Palestine will just realize it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's quite common, actually. In the Arab world. And there are resources. Like people are aware. It's not that people don't talk about it. You have to talk to the right people. And alhamdulillah, I talk to everybody, which is how I was able to find the resources, because I literally talk to anybody and everybody who will talk to me. So it works that way, and it works to my advantage that way. So, you know, that's how I found out. But
I talked about something like, I'm just going to clarify when it comes to digitalizing resources for special ed students, because most specifically, apart from ADHD, there are other aspects like dysgraphia, dyslexia. So, for example, they should have, for example, for dysgraphic students, they should have certain fonts, they should have certain kind of layout to the text itself, because they don't see it the way we see it. And my focus is most specifically on that, because, you know, a normal student who can pursue his tasks like from A to Z won't be having any issues navigating a digital platform or resource, but there will be a kind of focus. That's what I want to do, because I can feel my students, and I feel happy, you know, even more than happy when I see a special education, like special needs students achieving his targets. Like, let's say, before, someone who is supposed to achieve it like let's say in a faster way. So it's like with kind of scaffolding, with kind of whatever we do. It's like I had a student every teacher was complaining about. I'm not going to mention names. And he is the sweetest and the cutest student like you can have in your class. But the thing is that, as you said, he was not diagnosed first with ADHD. They didn't know what's wrong with him. He can't even sit on a chair. And then, so that was the person who, like, his peers, like his friends, they told him in class, can't you just sit on a chair? We just want to study. And they were just screaming to him, but no, this is not how it happens. So I started kind of implementing some activities in which he can run in class, like the running dictation, for example, things that they can move. They take them outside for drama classes. So because they get bored being in a room, you know, four walls, and just sitting there listening to an adult talking to them. So I did my best to make my students enjoy the learning experience as much as we can. And I think more is to be done. There's still more to be done. So thanks, Anastasia, for sharing your story every time. And it really, it's dear to my heart. And you can have my support. If ever I'll be learning anything which is digital online, I'll be sharing it with you, and vice versa. You know, feel free to share anything that can help others in the region or everywhere in the world. So thanks. Thank you. So, if we talk about KaiZen and improvement, you've already mentioned Yusuf's case in KaiZen, and, you know, we can use this as a verb. You kind of took your son to another level, like from the fact of acknowledging this, the fact of being open about it. It's really important. He will grow up being a very balanced adult. and knowing his strengths and improving whatever can be improved. And my best wishes to both of them, to Yusuf and to Saeed, and to you and to your lovely family. So today, while we're recording our podcast, it's allow me to say it's the prophet celebration of the prophet's birthday in our religion. So and I wish everybody who's watching this a happy celebration if they're celebrating the day. And for us, I should have brought like we cooked something, we prepared for the occasion. I might bring something and show it before the end of the podcast. It's like we call it the asida. It's like I'll show you exactly, and I'll look for the components. You know, it's something so sweet, and I'm not sure that Palestine they prepare something like that or not. No, I think in North Africa we do.
Here, apparently, half of because it's just very contingent. It's very illustrative of what Palestine does. Some people are celebrating it today, and some people are off tomorrow. So, for example, you know, some universities are off today. My kids are off tomorrow. Okay. So it's like, as usual, we're not in unison, we're not in sync. You just kind of go with the flow with that here, you know. So it's like they say one thing, I say, hey, we're going to start school this day. Oh, you know what? No, we're going to start in a week. It's fine. We're going to start in a week. It's like they just keep changing things and modifying, and you just go with it. So
okay.
But yes, the prophet's birthday today / tomorrow, depending.
I'm sending my positive vibes to whoever is watching this, be it in Palestine, be it in Tunisia, be it in everywhere in the world. So I'm just sending greetings on this special occasion. And back to talking about you, Anastasia. So you know, it's like I have a lot of questions to ask you, but I want to ask you the relevant questions is like to this podcast, because with the Ikigai, I mostly ask you about everything, you know, and now I want to ask you about your role as a leader in a profession. Let's say we talked about how you evolved from start to finish. How do you think, or let me just say the question in another way. Do you think it's important to have that kind of support from colleagues in the profession? Do you think it's important, or is it like an individualistic kind of individual journey? Everyone leads his own way, or how do you see this?
I think and me, of course, not being in the States and, you know, not being in my usual network of people, you get support from multiple places. And so I get support from, let's say, my work environment. I also get support from, I just joined Toastmasters. Yeah. Toastmasters, this other kind of component. And a lot of the Toastmasters people who are online are part of TESOL. So most of us are English language professionals, right? But there was a critique in one of the meetings that said, okay, we're all ESL professionals, we're all TESOL. Stop with all the TESOL, ESL speeches. You know, let's go outside of our comfort zone. Let's find other things to talk about, which also helps us to expand our leadership skills as well. You know, I also have a lot of support from colleagues in the States, but also TESOL International gives a whole global network. And so I literally can say that I have colleagues and friends all over the world. Every single place where I have gone so far to visit, I always know people there, or know people who are going to be there vacationing or whatever. So having those global connections really help us to solidify our roles as leaders. And also for, you know, different types of steps, especially as we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access are super important to me, and I infuse it in anything that I do, from curriculum development to even how, you know, I even handle my own children, where at one point Yusuf did something that, you know, was really great. I got him a toy, and my even 13-year-old was like, that's not fair. I'm like, do we have to discuss equity and equality again? Oh, right. No, mom, you're right. No, of course. No, I don't get a toy because exactly. Like, and also you're 13, you're a teenager. Stop it. You know, it's very, so, I mean, everything that, but also the different types of connections I have helps me to get a better picture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, because that looks different everywhere. Mislan diversity here is going to look very different from diversity in, let's say, Tunisia, mainly because of access, mainly because of the situation here. And inclusion is going to look very different. Also, accessibility is going to look very different. So even being aware of those things, working within those confines, but also pushing in certain ways for change in even the smallest level will make a difference. And I think that that's really important, especially as you move forward in global organizations, to understand that, celebrate the successes, but also understand and empathize with limitations, but also start trying to work to improve those limitations, even if they're small steps.
Yes, exactly. And I absolutely agree with you. I see it as a mosaic, you know. I see like every organization is like we are part of a huge community, global community. And you know, I believe in multilingualism. I even believe in using L1 sometimes in class at some particular stages, so that to kind of help students who had never learned the English. So I was teaching at an international school. It's accredited from let's say a well-acknowledged organization system, let's say, and we hosted students from different backgrounds. Some of them had never learned English, and it's not their first language. So what I had to do is that I had a class with people from Turkey, people from Libya, people from Egypt, people from Sudan, people from like students coming from every part of the world, and Tunisians, and people who only speak, students who only speak French. And I had to plan a lesson, and I had to kind of adjust the curriculum in a way everybody can have access to the same quality of education, the same quality of learning experience. For example, I was using the Pictionary sometimes at particular stages for vocab. If they don't know that this is a pen, for example, I can use it with a photo written in the L1, which is like, for example, in Turkish, and in English, so that they can draw an analogy between how the word is said in their language and how the words should be said in English. And it helped a little bit some of their students learn the language at an initial stage. But then we had to kind of support that with more lessons and courses. So they had to do that kind of intensive program so that they can learn the language, so that they to catch up with their friends. But it's good since we're talking about multilingualism. Yes, Anastasia, do you want to add something?
I would say, and sometimes it takes like one word or two words to be like, oh, I get it. For example, so I say paragraph, I'm like fakra. Oh, okay, yeah. And then everything that you're talking about a fakra or a jumla, a sentence,
yes,
it makes sense because they're like, now they have those words. And so I love like even the beginning of a lesson, you say, okay, hada Arabi or hada English, right? Because you know, and
you're good at
they'll have the scaffolding, they'll have kind of the background and say, oh, okay, I know this in Arabic, or I know this in this. Okay. And then whatever explanation you're trying to give in English, it just starts to make more sense.
They do.
So Google Translate just for a few words is super helpful sometimes to say, okay, this is what it is in Arabic. This is what I'm trying to teach you in English. It gives some kind of background. Now, when you have the multilingual, multiple people, multiple languages, like I had in the States for years, images, you know, pictures, like, okay, this is what I'm talking in English. Oh, okay, great. Exactly. Yes. It's great. And honestly, I always say like multilingual languaging, translanguaging is, you know, kind of the newer thing that everybody is looking into. But not just in like the educational context, but also just in the regular context. If you walk around the street and you hear people are code mixing and code switching all the time, you just have to listen for it. It's super fun to do that here, not eavesdropping, but you're in a coffee shop and you're just like, English is over here. You know, like, you know, some Arabic is over here. Oh, you hear French? Oh, what's happening? French? Oh, okay, it's over here. Or at one point, I heard Korean. There were Koreans who were visiting Ramallah, and it's like, you know, so people translanguage and things all the time. It's just communication. I think in the States where, you know, I'm from and where I lived for so many years, monolingualism seems to be the norm. It's like, I think it's becoming, hopefully, I haven't been there in over a year, but hopefully it's more people have realized there's more languages. And as you were talking about mosaic, everything is part of a tapestry, every little piece. If you're looking at identity, and identity is layered in diversity, and diversity has so many layers, identity being the core. And I think that, you know, celebrating that is crucial. And of course, we do this as language professionals, but also at the same time, world Englishes, right? What is the standard, but what are the world Englishes? You know, what are the ways that people express and use English? Because English is also quite colonized. And so I face a lot of issues, for example, here where, yeah, English used for university and English is used for a lot of things, but English is people who speak English are the people who have been responsible for our suffering for decades, from Britain to, America to whatever. And so language is very contextualized. Language is also very
cultural.
related in history. It's very cultural. So people have to make what they can of the language, even if there are painful aspects. You have to see how they're going to use it, and you have to be flexible with that and go with it, right? I don't like standardized, even though sometimes you have to teach IELTS, TOEFL, etc. I love looking at different world languages. Whenever I have a chance, I'll say, okay, we're going to listen to this. This was from South Africa. This person's from Nigeria. This person's, and they're all speaking English, right? But just having those different types of accents and experiences and, just the global tapestry, mosaic, as you said, it's super important when we're approaching that for students and everybody.
Exactly. And let me elaborate on what you said when it comes to language, and especially L2, because most of us, non-native speakers, English speakers, most of us, either we learn the language through colonization or through school with neo-colonialism, let's say. We can talk about this through media and school and education, all what is related to that. Some people, they just hate the language simply because it's the language of the colonizer, or they're not hate, but not comfortable using it. For example, for us, not a lot of people, they are well at ease using the French language. And now, like in my country, 2.0, they prefer studying, they prefer dealing with paperwork in English more than French, because simply they just no longer appreciate the culture just like they did or the ancestors did. And with theories, we can talk about even about, you talked about multilingualism, translingualism, and I can even mention Orientalism with Edward Said as well. It's like we can see the Orient sometimes as being related to, the feminine side and, the parties that the Caliph used to kind of organize, that kind of that period of time. There's sometimes people can recognize Africa as having camels, and dealing with, everything related to cook food, to the cultural aspect is beyond that. And language has those kind of palimpsests, if we can call that. It's like different layers. The first layer can be, for example, in my country, like the original, let's say, the Aborigines language is called Tamazight. It's not Arabic. It's like the original citizens, let's say, of Tunisia. Among them, myself, my last name is Ferchichi. So that's how it's pronounced in not in the English way, in the French way. It's not like Ferchichi. It's like Ferchichi. And I'm among those tribes, those who got rid of the colonization at that particular time. Because if we go back to history and learn more about this, so using our language now is a challenge. The Tamazight, the Imaziran language, we call it. The Imaziran language is kind of older in time than the Arabic. And now what I'm doing is like I'm trying to dig back into history to know some words. For example, Azul Filawin means Assalamu alaikum, just like in Arabic, which is hello in English. Azul Filawin. So I'm trying to learn some things that can go back to my roots in a way. But if I talk about my origins, I'm not going to bring this to this podcast because I have mixed origins, from Turkey, from Tunis, from Italy, from what else? My mom's parents, they were from Turkey as well. So, but I can see myself as a blend and a mosaic we talked about as a Tunisian person. So my identity itself is like a blend, a cocktail of all of that. So that is why I like diversity. And that's why I'm tolerant towards diversity, because I have it in my family. And I like dealing with people like speaking different languages. And do you think language is going to be kind of a hindrance for me or kind of an obstacle not dealing with someone because they speak a different language? Never. So that's what I like about traveling, actually. It's like I like talking to different people and knowing more about this. When it comes to traveling, Anastasia, before we wrap up, because I want to talk to you like forever. But this podcast, I made it like kind of shorter than the Ikigai because I want it to be I want this podcast to be much more visible because the length counts as well. So if people they can have it at hand, they can listen to the podcast while like jogging or while driving back home. So it's easier to have it with a kind of adjusted length. So the question is, Anastasia, where did you travel exactly? Like, are you like, do you like to travel? Are you someone who can call herself like a traveler? Like, how many countries have you been to?
Oh, ah, many, many, many. All over Western Europe, some Eastern Europe, of course, Middle East, a little bit of South America, of course, around the United States. But we're a traveling family. We love to travel, we love to see sights. There's a lot of things that, now we live on this side of the world, we have more access to. Just, hopping over to Europe is like 3.5 hours away, maybe 4 hours. So it's a little easier. But I love to travel. We try to go different trips, maybe like twice a year at least, maybe more, depending on what our schedules are. But I love it. I love to travel. I love, the food. I love the people, but definitely not in the summertime. We just went to Budapest in the summertime and we were miserable for about a quarter of it because we were just so hot. We would go out in the morning and then my husband would be like, okay, we're going to go 30 minutes. We're just going to get a shower and go back out again. We came home, we passed out for 2 hours because we were so hot. And we went back out when the sun was down because it was just so incredibly ridiculous. So we said, we're just going to arrange our schedules. We're going to take off work. We're going to take off school. We're going to travel in the fall. We're going to travel in the winter. Traveling in the summer is just, it's not worth it anymore. It's getting too hot.
It is.
So, but no, I love travel. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
It is. And I've learned a lot by traveling myself. And I guess you did the same. And so when it comes to traveling, I wanted to ask you about an experience that was very, very, let's say, fun in a way, and you learned a lesson from it. Can you remember something like an anecdote, something you can tell from a travel experience?
Fun and I learned a lesson. Most of the lessons I learn are just by talking to people. Random coffee shop, because obviously, you go to Budapest or, you go to Prague or something, like you're, obviously if we don't speak language, we kind of stick out. So sometimes it's just a foreigner who's just welcoming you and, or not a foreigner, sorry, I'm the foreigner. Usually it's a local welcoming you and just having a conversation. And it's, even if it's something like, hey, have you gone to this restaurant? Or, you don't want to go to this tourist space, you want to go to this space. And so just listening and talking to the locals and, getting to know things. A specific lesson I can't think of right now, but usually it's just little tidbits of just being just friendly people who are just very welcoming. And, I think, now that we all travel a lot, people are very relieved we see tourists and we're traveling again and connecting again. We're not just online, although Zoom has been great.
Oh, yes.
We're able having the face-to-face connection. There's nothing more crucial than having that kind of connection. So I think people are just, especially now in 2023, it's more of a relief and people are just very welcoming.
Well, your traveling experience is very inspiring, Anastasia. And in terms of lessons learned, I can tell you about a lesson that I learned while traveling. Is I was lost in Thailand and I did not have anything like any possibility how to get in touch with the group that I was with because I was not using like we didn't have mobile phones at that time. So what I was doing is like I tried to go to the place where initially the guide told us. So I'll start from the beginning. So it all started at 8 in the morning. So we had our breakfast, we went into the bus. And the tourist guide told us, like, today we're going, he gave us the itinerary kind of thing. So, and then I remembered that there was a place called Gems Gallery. It's like a gallery where they sell pearls and rings and whatever. So we had people, you know, going on their honeymoon, say they wanted to take them to get some kind of gifts for everybody. So I just remembered that detail. So we went to a temple called the Buddha Temple, and it was huge, you know. I just took my time to take photos. I was happy, you know, with my hat and with my, you know, curly hair. I was having so much fun, and I even forgot that I was part of that group. So they were just having fun, you know, couples on their honeymoon. So I was just like, what am I doing? So, and then I took time to take those photos, and then I'll show you the photo exactly later on. I'll share it with you on Facebook. It was next to kind of a fountain. They call it koi fish. They had nice fish there. So it was an amazing place. So I said, maybe they're not going to go from that place to the next one, not till noon. So I spent the time needed there. Then when I turned, I figured out that there was no one part of the group there with me. So the thing is that what I learned is I can still have fun while traveling, but I had maybe to kind of have a backup plan just in case I get lost. So that was one of the lessons that I learned from traveling. And, you know, we can have a whole podcast on experiences learned from traveling, you know, but not today. And thank you, Anastasia, for your time. Do you want to add something? I'm sure you wanted to say something.
It's always very enlightening. You know, I never know what to expect when I get on these podcasts with you. I never know what kind of topic we're going to get into. I think I messaged you earlier and said, I'm not prepared. I haven't done a lot of work because I have a lot of my own to-do list. You're like, it's okay, don't worry, we're just going to talk. And so I always appreciate you asking questions, pushing me to different levels, and, you know, allowing me to be more reflective and process and things like that. So it's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And actually, that's the point. I tell my guests that they shouldn't worry. They shouldn't worry because, like, the podcast is not staged, you know. I kind of explain what is the concept. I have kind of a certain framework, like just like for any speech, you know, this is the beginning. This is, generally speaking, what we're going to talk about, because you know that I know that my guests, they have their personal lives, they have their professional lives, so I always respect that, and I just elaborate on that. I keep it as a friendly chat, and that's the point. Whoever's going to listen to this is going to enjoy the experience, and I'm sure that a lot they learned from the human aspect, which is shared from you every time that I talk to you. And this is your personality everywhere, Anastasia, because I've seen you everywhere. You know, I've seen you with the TESOL International Association. I've seen you with TEFL Kuwait. So you're always true to yourself, and that's what makes someone authentic, and not necessarily in the field. I'm not talking about us being teachers. It's like the human aspect, the human being. It's like, and I hope to see you for real and see you soon in any part of the world, not necessarily. Not necessarily in your country, but anywhere in the world. And let's make this happen soon. Okay. Thank you, Anastasia.
We'll make it happen. Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Take care.
Take care. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.